Okay, today's question is from Rochelle, who happens to be from New Rochelle. And Rochelle wanted to know, how has my writing changed in the past 10 years and why has it changed? Well, Rochelle, everything is based on consciousness, and when I first came to America, I saw the world very differently than how I'm seeing it now. And bear in mind, when I came here, I was 15 years old. So I kind of wrote from that lens, and let me explain how I saw the world. The first problem, I was in a new environment, and this environment didn't make any sense to me. It was just an idea. I was in a place that completely did not make sense. I could not figure out where I am or what I was doing here because this didn't make any sense. Let me explain why it didn't make any sense. The first thing that happened, I found when I came here at age 15, my interpretation of the area that I was living, I found black Americans, that's all I knew, black Americans, to be extremely ignorant and extremely stupid. That was my interpretation. Before you judge me, let me explain. The reason why I found them to be extremely stupid and extremely ignorant, I did not understand at the time that they didn't like themselves. So what they were seeing when they attacked me was a reflection of themselves, and they're attacking that reflection that they don't like. But for me, the way I interpreted it at 15 years old, they're telling me go back in your banana boat and go back to Jamaica, and they're making all this fun of Jamaica. But 98% of the students in my school never ever went on a plane. They've never traveled. They've never went outside of the United States. While most of the kids who came from Jamaica, we had family in Canada, we had family in England, so we traveled a lot before we came here and migrated to America. So when I came here and found black Americans attacking me and telling me what Jamaica looked like when they've never traveled, I just found them to be extremely ignorant. The other thing that I found that blew my mind was in Jamaica, we were told America is a land of opportunity. In America, everything great happens in America. It's the land of milk and honey. So I saw this place as this really majestic ideal. When I came to America, I found the education system to be extremely low. When I came and went in the 9th grade, the work that the teachers were giving me, it was stuff or information or material that I did when I was in the 2nd grade in Jamaica. So I couldn't believe how low the level of education was. Then 2 years later, I transferred from that school and went to a school 6 miles up the road that was all white. Now I was the only black kid in this school. And now I'm realizing racism. I'm seeing blatant racism. When I started working, white people would treat me like I'm absolutely stupid. They would get around and gather and say, there was this one particular guy on the job, his name was Stuart, and they would say, Stuart is an ass, we should ostracize him. Then they look around and see me sitting there. You know, Kirk, as in not speak to him, as in leave him alone, as in just let him be by himself. Oh, is that what ostracize meant? Because I thought it was a huge bird that couldn't fly. And this was a nonsense that I dealt with. So even going back to high school, I looked and I saw something that permeated the consciousness with the students. Like, if I got into a fight, if I were living in Jamaica and I got in a fight, it doesn't matter if I'm fighting this other guy and he has 10,000 of his friends there. We're going to fight one-on-one, a fair fight. If I happen to start winning, his boys are going to jump in and they're going to break the fight up. But I don't have to worry about fighting any of these 10,000 other people. It's just going to be a one-on-one fight. I came to America, you get into a fight, now all of a sudden you're fighting 6 or 7 different people. The same thing, the same consciousness with the nation, because I will watch America go to war and she would get 6 and 7 of her allies. First of all, America was strong enough to kick anybody's butt by herself, but she would get 6 or 7 allies and go to war and pound on this little nation. And I was seeing the same thing happen with the people I'm getting to fight. And so I'm seeing this consciousness and I'm not liking it. I'm seeing a lot of hypocrisy. When I started writing, I remember one of the first poems that I wrote, I'm watching television and I'm dealing with all this racism, I'm dealing with all these issues that I'm not fitting in, I'm not understanding, and I'm dealing with a lot of hypocrisy that I'm seeing in society. And people are saying, well, it's in your head, it doesn't exist. Racism, ha ha ha, that was slavery 200 years ago, that doesn't exist. They were acting like I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, I'm not reading the matrix correctly. So there's a news report that came on, and America said she wanted to send a probe into Mars because they wanted to know if life could be sustained on Mars. And this was one of the first poems that I wrote when I came to America. And basically it said, You pollute the earth with your political wars. Now you have your satellite pointed at the stars with the hope of exploring Mars, but just who do you think you are? And what if you went to Mars and saw Martians but they didn't speak your language? Would you call them savages and rob them of their heritage, commit them to a life of bondage and use their bodies as experiment for syphilis? Would you give them facilities that were separate but equal and encourage them not to fuss? Would you seat the green Martians at the back of the Martian bus? Upon your arrival, would the Martian realize their greatest fears? Would you march them all across Mars on a trail of tears? Would you lynch the male Martians, the ones you couldn't tame, whip the green Martians and change their names? Or would you exploit them just for the sake of greed? Would it be a crime for a Martian to teach another Martian to read? Would you abuse them for generations, over a matter of time? Would you make the color green synonymous with crime? See, I know you would degrade them. It doesn't take a genius to go figure. You probably start by saying they look like little green niggas. Would you treat them as livestock and raise the male to become breeders? Would you orchestrate the massacre of their Martian leaders? And what if they were a Martian king and a Martian ex? After you murder them, who would you slaughter next? In the middle of the night, would your clansmen cut their throats? Would they have to march for generations just for the right to vote? And when you write your history books, what will be your version? Would you see the Martians as 3/5 of a person? How many Martians would get a broken neck as your officers went out to serve and protect? See, I'm just asking because I know what your so-called explorations are worth. Upon your arrival, you wipe cultures off the earth. So if you set foot on Mars, the Martians will probably pray for death at birth. So for the love of God, keep your ass on earth. So that's how I started writing. I started writing by addressing the problems that I saw. Now, as my consciousness grew, I started looking at solutions as opposed to problems. So that will be the main change in the fact that the issues are still there, the problems are still there, but now I'm seeing more of the solution. I'm writing more from unity consciousness. How can we get beyond this duality? Because that's all I saw when I came in, that's all I understood. But once I start understanding rather, the consciousness of unity, then it made more sense to write from the solution as opposed to the problem. So Rochelle, I hope to answer your question. If you have any more, just send me an email and we'll talk more tomorrow.